Alright, so this news just crossed my desk, literally crossed my desk. It came to my attention that ARK Invest has released a new ETF, a Space Exploration and Innovation ETF, which should be the height of meme stocks. But this ETF, as compared to others, is actually quite interesting, but unfortunately for all the wrong reasons. First thing, as anyone will notice right off the bat, as always customary with every ARK Invest ETF, is the abominable ETF expense ratio. I've said this now for some time. In fact, in an interview I did with Niche Investing, I really believe that ARK Invest ETFs are mutual funds masquerading as ETFs. And I think in this video you'll see the reasons why. So this ETF, which will be launching now here tomorrow, focuses on 4 categories, right? So orbital, aerospace companies, enabling technologies, and beneficiaries. And that's interesting, and that's fine and dandy. I think as a general philosophy that makes sense, but you can tell with how this ETF is set up that they're playing very, very fast and loose with enabling technologies and beneficiary technologies, right? So I took a brief look at the prospectus, and I think anyone who is interested in investing in any ETF, whether it's an ETF, a closed-end fund, or even a SPAC, you need to read the prospectus at the bare minimum. And there's nothing that really stood out here. I'll have to go through it more thoroughly, and I might make a follow-up video. You should read that, though, on your own time. What I found fascinating, this is what anyone should look at really as soon as they see an ETF, of course, the top 10 holdings. And immediately what struck me was most of these companies have absolutely nothing to do with space, or if they have anything to do with space, it's extremely marginal. What immediately jumped off the page to me is that there's no Maxar Space Technologies on this list, right? So Maxar Space Technologies is, in my opinion, the leader in geospatial intelligence and running with satellites. All those viral pictures you saw of the tanker that got stuck in the Suez Canal, guess who took the satellite imagery of it? It was Maxar Space Technologies. I mean, looking at these photos, I can't even get a picture that clear when I'm taking a picture with my cell phone of stuff on my desk, right? So I can take a picture of stuff right in front of me, and it's not as clear as some of these pictures. It's actually crazy to think how little privacy we have now with all these satellites. It really is humbling. So anyway, that is dangerously missing, in my opinion, from this ETF. And then going through some of these, I mean, the 3D printing ETF, you could argue, I suppose, it has something to do with space. If you're going to be arguing we're going to be setting up 3D printed colonies on Mars, I still think that's speculation at this stage. Boeing and Lockheed Martin make sense. They've been active in aerospace engineering. Totally makes sense. In fact, Boeing created the X-37 orbital fighter for I think the Department of Defense or the Air Force, and that's one of the few military vehicles ever to operate in low orbits and in space. That part I do understand, but NVIDIA, I suppose it's an enabling technology, but really it just sounds like you're just trying to invest in the GTX 3080 I put in my computer. I mean, that's very marginal. Amazon.com, too, I think is just a total misstep when it comes to investing, right? So I think the reason this is in there is because people associate Jeff Bezos' Amazon.com with Blue Origin, right, which is Jeff Bezos' rocket company. But if you look at the investors in Blue Origin, and this is a private company, by the way, you'll see NASA's in there. And there's various groups, such as the Space Angels even, and Bezos' family office, right? So as far as I know, and I did a brief search, I can't find any evidence that Amazon.com even owns any stock, if significant, in Blue Origin. Now, going down further, I will note, Alphabet Incorporated, right? So Google is on this ETF, and Google does own stock in SpaceX, which is Elon Musk's rocket company. But again, you're talking about, at best, a very limited, lopsided effort to get exposure into SpaceX. And this is one of the stronger companies on here that actually has true space exposure, as you'll see here in a moment. And so far, it's not looking good. Garmin Limited makes sense. They do GPS, though I would argue Maxar gets you more exposure in that area. Virgin Galactic, this actually is one of the true space companies on here, but you can see it's not even 2% of the portfolio. That's obviously Richard Branson's company. He's been trying to make suborbital flights and sell them to tourists. Then you get other things on here. For example, holding the US dollar. I suppose that's for Forex hedging, but it's amazing that investing in the dollar, 1% of all this, and that's not doing much for space. I think everyone just about now is acknowledging that the US dollar is not a good place to be. I just saw on a talk with Graham Stephan, he was talking about how he's trying to buy cars just to avoid inflation. I mean, even if the most normie of the normie channels are acknowledging that they got to throw away their cash because cash is trash, not a good place to be, though. I totally understand every ETF holds US dollars. It's just you need that on hand to rebalance, Forex hedging, etc., etc. I get that. But what I don't get is Netflix. Why is Netflix in a space ETF? I mean, maybe they have shows about 3D animations, and I think The Martian with Matt Damon's on there, but this has no business in a space ETF. It's only 1.25%, but there's so many examples in this portfolio of just things I don't understand. Like Taiwan Semiconductor, Tencent Holdings, and XLNX. Yeah, those are companies that create, I suppose, chips and the technology necessary for spaceflight, but it's a very, very big stretch when you're talking about investing in space, quote unquote, right? So, well, you could argue, well, astronauts breathe oxygen, therefore, if I invest in oxygen production, I'm investing in space. I'm not so sure. I think if you wanted to actually have a true space ETF, you'd be better off making one on your own, probably on M1 Finance or in your own brokerage. It doesn't matter so much to me. Link down in the description, by the way, if you want to sign up for M1 Finance and create your own ETF, putting that in air quotes, so to speak. Space might be a good place to start. If you want to get more exposure to space, you can find better companies than these. Again, I would start with Maxar. And even looking into buying helium, that's a very necessary commodity for spaceflight. You know, as far as meme stocks go, ARK Invest has always been the leader of these meme stock ETFs, but this is really pushing it. I mean, we're talking about Netflix and John Deere tractors. I mean, unless Netflix is making the latest reality show about John Deere tractors and, I don't know, My Farm Life, some sort of reality show, I just don't get this at all. I mean, half of these companies have little or nothing to do with space. This really is incredible. So those are my brief introductory thoughts in the ARKX Space ETF. I tried to record a video earlier today, but I encountered audio problems when I was setting up my studio. So I apologize for that. That video would have been a video about inflation, which you hopefully can see coming up in the next few days. I want to thank you all for watching. As always, check out the link down below. That's an affiliate link to M1 Finance. You sign up, I get $10, you get $10. That's an instant 10% gain when you deposit $100 and get started on investing. As always, this is not financial advice. And if you want to check out more of my thoughts on investing in general, please follow down below to the Telegram Investing Journal, where you'll find more detailed posts about my thoughts about current events and topics in investing and the latest news. That's all for this video, and I'll see you next time. There's a lot of great stuff coming down the pipeline, and I've been doing a lot of good, interesting, and innovative cutting-edge R&D for this channel, which I hope you'll see in the coming weeks.